I should have known something was wrong when my parents laughed. Not the warm, family dinner kind of laughter that fills a home with love. This was different, cold, calculated, the kind that cuts through your chest and settles in your stomach like ice water. "You'll never be as good as your brother," my mother said between chuckles, dabbing her eyes with her napkin as if she'd just told the funniest joke in the world. My father nodded along, that familiar smirk spreading across his face as he cut into his steak, the same steak I'd paid for, at the same dining table I'd helped buy, in the house where I'd been covering the mortgage for the past 15 years. My name is Jennifer Martinez, and for 35 years I'd been living in the shadow of my golden child brother, Michael. But that night, everything changed. That night, I finally stood up. The dining room felt smaller than usual, the burgundy walls seeming to close in as my parents' laughter echoed off the family photos lining the mantelpiece. Photos where Michael's achievements were prominently displayed: his college graduation, his promotion to regional manager, his new car. I searched for any picture celebrating my accomplishments and found exactly what I always found: nothing. "Jennifer, pass the salt," my father said without looking up from his plate, still chuckling at my mother's comment. As if I was invisible, as if I hadn't just heard them dismiss 35 years of my existence with a casual laugh. I reached for the salt shaker, my hand trembling slightly. Not from nerves, from rage, pure, unfiltered rage that had been building for decades, because while they sat there, eating the meal I'd paid for, laughing about how I'd never measure up to Michael, they had no idea what I'd sacrificed to keep this family afloat. The dinner conversation continued around me like I wasn't even there. Mom gushed about Michael's latest business trip to Chicago. Dad bragged to no one in particular about his son's corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. They painted this picture of Michael as the family's financial backbone, the responsible one, the son they could count on. Meanwhile, I sat quietly, remembering the call I'd gotten that morning. Mom, her voice shaky and desperate, asking if I could help out just a little with the electric bill. The same electric bill I'd been paying every month for the past 3 years. The same woman who was now laughing at the idea that I could ever be as good as my brother. I thought about the spreadsheet hidden in my laptop at home. 15 years of financial records, meticulously tracked. Every mortgage payment, every utility bill, every medical expense, every grocery run. $247,000. That's what I'd contributed to keeping this family's head above water while Michael built his perfect career and took all the credit. "Michael called today," Mom announced, her face lighting up like Christmas morning. "He's thinking about buying a boat. Can you imagine?" Our boy, with his own boat. Our boy. With his own boat. Bought with the money he saved by never having to worry about family obligations because his little sister had that covered. The meatloaf sat heavy in my stomach as memories flooded back. The time Michael graduated college debt-free because I'd been secretly paying Mom and Dad's bills, freeing up their money to cover his tuition. The vacation they took to celebrate his promotion while I worked overtime to cover their mortgage payment. The countless family dinners where Michael was praised for his success while I was ignored, even though my bank account made their lifestyle possible. I remembered the night 3 years ago when Dad had his heart attack. Michael flew in from Denver, played the concerned son for the cameras, and flew back out after 2 days. I was the one who stayed. I was the one who paid the hospital bills. I was the one who covered Mom's expenses while she took time off work to care for him. But when the family talked about Dad's recovery, it was always about how lucky they were to have such a successful son like Michael to rely on. The gaslighting had been so subtle, so consistent, that I'd almost started believing it myself. Maybe I wasn't as successful as Michael. Maybe I wasn't contributing enough. Maybe I needed to work harder, do more, give more, to earn their approval. But sitting there, listening to them laugh about how I'd never measure up, something inside me snapped. "You know what's funny?" I said, my voice cutting through their chatter like a knife through silk. The laughter stopped. Mom and Dad looked at me with surprise, as if they'd forgotten I could speak. "What's that, honey?" Mom asked, her tone patronizing in the way it always was when she remembered I existed. I set down my fork carefully, my hands steadier now than they'd been all evening. It's funny that you think Michael is such a financial success story. Dad raised an eyebrow. Well, he is. Regional manager at 33. Corner office. Company car. He's doing very well for himself. He is, I agreed. And it's amazing what someone can accomplish when they never have to worry about family responsibilities. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Mom and Dad exchanged glances, that silent communication that parents perfect after decades of marriage. What's that supposed to mean? Dad asked, his voice carrying a warning. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. 15 years of transaction history at my fingertips. It means, Dad, that Michael has been free to build his career because someone else has been taking care of everything here. Taking care of what? Mom laughed nervously. We take care of ourselves, Jennifer. We don't need anyone's help. The lie hung in the air like smoke, heavy, obvious, insulting. I thought about all the times I'd canceled plans with friends because Mom needed just a little help with groceries. All the vacations I'd skipped because Dad's medication was expensive that month. All the relationships that had failed because I was always broke, always stressed, always putting my family's needs before my own. Really? I said, scrolling through my phone. Because my bank records tell a different story. Let's see. Last month alone, I transferred $1,200 to your checking account for the mortgage, $800 for utilities, $600 for Dad's prescription medications. Should I keep going? The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's face had gone pale, and Dad had stopped chewing entirely. That's not, Mom stammered. February, I continued, my voice gaining strength. $1,500 for the roof repair, $900 for groceries and household expenses. March, oh, this is a good one. $2,200 because Dad's car needed a new transmission. Jennifer, stop, Dad said quietly. But I wasn't stopping. Not anymore. 15 years of silence. 15 years of being overlooked and undervalued, 15 years of financial records that told the real story of this family's success. You want to know why Michael looks so successful? I asked, standing up from my chair. It's because he's never had to choose between his career advancement and his family's survival. He's never missed a promotion opportunity because he was working overtime to cover someone else's medical bills. He's never had to explain to a date why he can't afford dinner because his parents needed help with their mortgage. The words were pouring out now, years of suppressed truth finally seeing daylight. Michael bought his house with a down payment he saved because he never had to worry about keeping this family afloat. He invested in his 401k while I invested in all of you. He built his emergency fund while I was your emergency fund. Mom's hands were shaking now. We never asked you to. You didn't have to ask. The explosion came from somewhere deep in my chest. 15 years of buried resentment finally erupting. You just expected it, every month, like clockwork. A text about this bill or that expense, always with the same message. Just this once, just until we get back on our feet, just a little help. I walked to the window, looking out at the perfectly manicured lawn that I'd paid to have landscaped last spring. The irony wasn't lost on me that even their picture-perfect home was built on my sacrifice. Do you know what it's like? I said, my voice quieter now, but no less intense. To watch your family celebrate someone else's success when you're the one who made it possible? To sit at dinner after dinner, hearing about Michael's achievements, knowing that every dollar he saved because he didn't have to help his family was a dollar that came out of my future? I turned back to face them. Mom was crying now, but not the kind of tears that come from guilt or recognition. These were the tears of someone whose comfortable lie was being exposed. We appreciate everything you do, she whispered. Do you? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Because 5 minutes ago, you were laughing about how I'll never be as good as your son. The same son who's never contributed a single dollar to this family's survival. Dad cleared his throat, trying to regain control of the situation. Now, Jennifer, that's not fair. Michael has his own life. His own responsibilities. His own responsibilities? I repeated. What responsibilities? His mortgage that he can afford because he doesn't pay yours? His car payment that he can handle because he doesn't cover your utilities? His investment portfolio that he can build because he doesn't fund your medical expenses? The truth was laying waste to their carefully constructed narrative, and I could see the panic in their eyes. You've spent 15 years telling everyone about Michael's success story, I continued, but you never mention the plot twist. You never explain that his success was subsidized by his sister's sacrifice. Mom stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. That's enough, Jennifer. You're being dramatic. Dramatic. The word that had been used to dismiss every emotion I'd ever expressed in this house. Every time I'd tried to set a boundary. Every time I'd asked for recognition. Every time I'd shown frustration with the constant financial demands, I was being dramatic. Dramatic? I pulled up my banking app again. Let me show you dramatic, Mom. This is my savings account. Want to guess how much is in there? She didn't answer. $700. $700 in savings after working for 15 years as a marketing professional. Do you know why? Because every time I tried to save money, there was always some family emergency that required my immediate attention. I swiped to another screen. This is Michael's social media. Look at these photos from his vacation to Europe last month. Looks like he stayed in some pretty nice hotels, ate at some expensive restaurants. I wonder how he afforded that. Stop it, Dad said firmly. He afforded it, I continued, ignoring Dad's command. Because while I was covering your bills, he was building his dream life. And then you sit here at a dinner that I paid for and laugh about how I'll never be as good as him. The room fell silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner, the same clock I'd helped them buy when they just needed a little help furnishing the living room. But the silence didn't last long, because what happened next changed everything. Mom wiped her eyes and looked at me with the expression I'd seen countless times before, the look that said I was being unreasonable, ungrateful, difficult. Jennifer, she said, her voice taking on that fake sweet tone she used when she wanted something, I think you're misremembering things. We've never asked you for money. The words hit me like a physical blow, not because they hurt, but because they were so blatantly, impossibly false. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, waiting for her to admit she was joking. She wasn't joking. Excuse me, I said. We appreciate that you want to help, Dad chimed in, but we've always been financially independent. We would never take money from our children. I felt the world tilt on its axis. 15 years of bank transfers, 15 years of emergency payments, 15 years of sacrificing my own financial security, and they were sitting there looking me straight in the eye and denying it all. You're saying I never gave you money? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Well, Mom said, shifting uncomfortably, maybe occasionally you've insisted on paying for dinner or you've given us little gifts, but that's different from… Little gifts? The laugh that escaped my throat sounded foreign, almost hysterical. $2,200 for Dad's transmission was a little gift? I don't know what you're talking about, Mom said firmly. And that's when I realized the full scope of what I was dealing with. This wasn't just favoritism. This wasn't just taking me for granted. This was systematic gaslighting on a level that took my breath away. They had taken my money for 15 years, relied on my financial support to maintain their lifestyle, and then convinced themselves, and tried to convince me, that it had never happened. I thought about Michael, completely unaware that his parents' financial stability was built on his sister's bank account. I thought about the family narrative that painted him as the responsible, successful child, while I was dismissed as the one who never quite measured up. I thought about 15 years of feeling like I wasn't good enough, smart enough, successful enough, all while literally funding the family's success story. The gaslighting was so complete, so thorough, that they had erased my contributions from their own memory. Or maybe they hadn't erased them. Maybe they just found it more convenient to pretend they didn't exist. Either way, I was done. I stood up from the table, my legs shaky, but my resolve solid as steel. You know what? I said, looking at both of them. You're right. I'll never be as good as Michael. They both relaxed slightly, thinking I was backing down, accepting their version of reality. "But there's one thing Michael has never done for this family," I continued. "And since you're so confident that I've never given you any money, you won't mind when I stop sending it." The color drained from Mom's face so quickly I thought she might faint. "What money?" she asked, but her voice was weak now, desperate. "We never received a single dollar from you." I smiled for the first time all evening, a cold, knowing smile that felt foreign on my face. "Perfect," I said. "Then you'll never miss what you never had." I drove home that night with my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The silence in my car felt different from the oppressive quiet of my parents' dining room. This silence was mine. For the first time in 15 years, I owned my own space, my own thoughts, my own truth. But owning the truth and proving it were two different things entirely. The moment I walked through my apartment door, I went straight to my laptop. If my parents wanted to play the "we never received money" game, I was about to become the most prepared player they'd ever faced. I spent the entire night pulling records, bank statements dating back to 2009, screenshots of text messages begging for just a little help, copies of checks with Mom and Dad mortgage written in the memo line, email confirmations of wire transfers, receipt after receipt after receipt. By sunrise, I had 15 years of evidence spread across my coffee table like pieces of a puzzle that, when assembled, told the story of the most elaborate financial gaslighting scheme I'd ever seen. The first text message I found was from 2009. "Jenny, honey, we're a little short on the house payment this month. Could you help us out? We'll pay you back as soon as Dad gets his bonus. Love you." The bonus never came. The payback never happened. But the requests kept coming, month after month, year after year. I scrolled through my phone, reading message after message. "Emergency at the house. Water heater died. Need $1,200 ASAP. Dad's medication isn't covered by insurance this month. Can you transfer $600? The property taxes are due and we're short $1,100. You're such a lifesaver." Each message followed by my immediate response. "Money sent, hope this helps." And their replies, "You're the best daughter in the world. We don't know what we'd do without you." I laughed bitterly as I read that last line, the best daughter in the world, right up until it was time to acknowledge what I'd actually done for them. But the text messages were just the beginning. The real evidence was in my banking app, and what I found there made my stomach turn. I started calculating. Not just the big emergencies, but everything. Every quick favor that turned into a monthly obligation. Every one-time help that somehow became automatic. The mortgage payments I'd been covering for 3 years straight, $1,947 per month. That was $66,492 right there. The utility bills I'd taken over when Dad had his heart attack, $200, $350 per month for 2 years. Another $6,600. The medical expenses that insurance didn't quite cover, $23,147 over 6 years. The car repairs, home improvements, emergency vet bills for their dog, groceries during tight months, property taxes, insurance premiums. It went on and on. My final tally, $247,394. Nearly $250,000. Gone. Funneled into maintaining my parents' lifestyle while they praised my brother for his financial success. I sat back in my chair, staring at the number on my calculator screen. That money could have been a house down payment. It could have been my retirement fund. It could have been my freedom. Instead, it was the invisible foundation of my family's perfect life. But I needed more than just financial records. I needed witnesses. I needed people who could confirm that yes, Jennifer Martinez had been financially supporting her parents for over a decade. I called my best friend Sarah first. "Jen, it's 7 in the morning. What's wrong?" "Sarah, I need you to think back. How many times over the years have I had to cancel plans because of family emergencies?" There was a pause. "Oh God, Jen. Are you okay? Is this about last night?" I'd texted her briefly after leaving my parents' house, just enough to let her know the dinner had been a disaster. "I need you to remember," I said. All the times I couldn't go on trips, couldn't afford dinners out, had to leave events early because my parents needed help with something. Jen, Sarah's voice was soft. Honey, it's been constant, for years. I stopped planning expensive things because I knew you were always strapped for cash helping your family. The validation hit me like a wave of relief. You remember the weekend trip to Napa we planned for my 30th birthday? You canceled 2 days before because your dad needed emergency dental work. The concert tickets you got us for Christmas 3 years ago? You had to sell them because your mom needed help with property taxes. My birthday dinner last year when I had to leave early? Your dad called about some plumbing emergency. Sarah paused. Jen, where is this going? What happened last night? I told her everything. About the dinner, the laughter, the complete denial of 15 years of financial support, about my parents claiming they'd never received a single dollar from me. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Jen, that's not just lying. That's psychological abuse. They've been gaslighting you for years, and now they're trying to erase the evidence. Psychological abuse. The words hung in the air like smoke. I'd never thought of it that way, but Sarah was right. This wasn't just about money. This was about systematically convincing me that my reality wasn't real. I called 3 more friends, my cousin Lisa, who lived in the same city, even my hairstylist who'd heard me take countless emergency calls from my parents over the years. Every single person confirmed the same pattern. Jennifer Martinez always broke because she was always helping her family, but I saved the best witness for last. Mrs. Patterson lived next door to my parents and had been their neighbor for 20 years. She'd watched me grow up, had seen me coming and going from their house constantly as an adult, had witnessed my parents' lifestyle improvements over the years. Oh, Jennifer, dear, she said when I called. I was just thinking about you. I saw you leave your parents' house last night. You looked upset. Mrs. Patterson, can I ask you something? Over the years, have my parents ever mentioned that I helped them financially? Oh, honey, of course they have. Your mother brags about you constantly. She's always telling me how lucky they are to have such a generous daughter. Just last month, she was telling me how you paid for their new dishwasher. My heart started racing. She said that I paid for it? Well, yes. She said you insisted on buying it for them as an early Christmas gift. She was so proud, talking about what a thoughtful daughter she raised. I nearly dropped the phone. My parents had been telling their neighbors about my financial contributions for years. They'd been taking credit for raising such a generous daughter while simultaneously denying that the generosity existed. The hypocrisy was so stunning, so complete, that I actually laughed. Mrs. Patterson, did they ever mention my brother Michael helping them financially? Michael? Oh, he's such a successful young man, isn't he? But no, dear. Your mother always says Michael has his own life to worry about. She's very proud that he's doing so well for himself, but she always says you're the one who takes care of family. There it was, the missing piece. My parents had been living a double life, taking my money while praising Michael's success, bragging to neighbors about my generosity while denying it to my face. After I hung up with Mrs. Patterson, I sat in my living room surrounded by evidence and felt something I hadn't experienced in 15 years. Clarity. This wasn't about money. This had never been about money. This was about power, control, and the systematic destruction of my sense of reality. They had turned me into the family's silent benefactor while positioning Michael as the success story. They had taken my contributions and rewritten the narrative to make themselves the heroes and me the supporting character in my own life. But now I had proof. 15 years of proof. And I was going to use every single piece of it. I started with the automatic transfers. Every monthly payment I'd set up to make their lives easier. Gone. The mortgage payment that was scheduled to come out of my account in 3 days? Canceled. The utility company that automatically charged my credit card for their electric bill? Called and removed. Then I drafted an email. Not to my parents. They'd made it clear that direct communication was pointless. This email was going to everyone else. Dear family and friends, I began. Recent events have brought some important family matters to light, and I feel it's necessary to clarify my role in our family's financial situation over the past 15 years. I attached bank statements, screenshots of text messages, photos of checks. I included quotes from neighbors and friends who could verify my constant financial stress due to family obligations. I laid out every single dollar, every emergency, every temporary arrangement that had become permanent. I'm sharing this information not to embarrass anyone, but to set the record straight. For 15 years, I have been the primary financial supporter of my parents' household, while my brother Michael received credit for being the successful child. This support has cost me nearly $250,000 in savings, retirement contributions, and personal opportunities. I detailed the gaslighting, the denial, the rewriting of history. I explained how my parents had praised my generosity to neighbors while claiming to my face that I'd never helped them at all. Moving forward, I will no longer be providing financial support to my parents. This decision comes after they claimed, in front of witnesses, that they have never received a single dollar from me. Since they apparently don't need or want my help, I'm honoring their wishes. I ended with a simple statement. I'm sharing this because I believe family relationships should be built on honesty and mutual respect. I hope we can find a way forward that honors everyone's contributions and sacrifices. Before I could second-guess myself, I hit send. The email went to my brother Michael, my aunts and uncles, family friends, even some of my parents' neighbors who'd been copied on family updates over the years. My phone started ringing within minutes. The first call was from my Aunt Carol, my mother's sister. "Jennifer, honey, I just read your email. Is this all true?" "Every word, Aunt Carol." "Oh my God, I had no idea. Your mother always made it sound like you kids were both doing well for yourselves." "Michael is doing well for himself," I said. "I've been doing well for all of them." The calls kept coming. Uncle Robert, who remembered me missing his retirement party because of a family emergency. Cousin David, who'd always wondered why I never had money for family celebrations. Family friend Janet, who'd witnessed my parents bragging about Michael's success, while casually mentioning that I helped out sometimes. But the most important call came 6 hours later. "Jen, it's Michael." My brother's voice was quiet, confused. We hadn't spoken in months, despite living in the same state. Another casualty of my role as the invisible family supporter. Michael and I had never built a real relationship because I was always too busy managing our parents' needs. "I got your email," he said, "and I've been going through my own records. Jen, I had no idea." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've been sending Mom and Dad money too. Not as much as you, but they told me you were having financial troubles. They said I was the only one who could help them." My blood turned to ice. "They what?" "For the past 2 years, I've been sending them about $500 a month. They said you'd lost your job and couldn't help anymore, so they were counting on me to step up." I closed my eyes, feeling the full scope of their manipulation wash over me. They hadn't just been taking my money and denying it. They'd been taking Michael's money too, while telling him I was the one who couldn't contribute. "Michael," I said carefully, "I never lost my job. I've been sending them money every month for 15 years, including the past 2 years. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. "They've been playing us against each other," he finally said, his voice hollow. "Yeah, they have." "Jen, I'm so sorry. I had no idea what you'd been going through. I thought I was the responsible one. I thought I was taking care of them." "You were taking care of them, Michael. We both were. While they made sure neither of us knew what the other was doing." Michael was quiet for another moment. "What do we do now?" "We stop," I said simply. "We stop sending money. We stop enabling this. We stop letting them pit us against each other. But what if they really need help? What if there's a real emergency?" I thought about 15 years of emergencies. The water heater that died 3 separate times. The car repairs that somehow cost more than the car was worth. The medical bills that were always just slightly more than their insurance would cover. Then they can ask us both, together, with full transparency about their finances. No more secret arrangements. No more playing us against each other. No more lies. Michael agreed, but I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. This was harder for him. He'd been the golden child, the success story. He'd never had to question the family narrative before. But for me, this conversation was liberation. For the first time in 15 years, my brother and I were on the same team. The next morning, my parents called an emergency family meeting. I almost laughed when I got the text. Family meeting tonight, 7 p.m. Important family matters to discuss. Both children need to be there. Both children. As if we were still teenagers who could be summoned and controlled. But I went. Michael went. We sat in the same dining room where this had all started, but everything had changed. Mom and Dad looked haggard, older somehow. The evidence I'd shared had made its way through the family network, and their carefully constructed image was crumbling. This has all gotten out of hand, Dad started, his voice lacking its usual authority. We need to clear up some misunderstandings. What misunderstandings? I asked calmly. About the money situation, Mom said, not meeting my eyes. Maybe we weren't clear before. You were perfectly clear, I said. You told me you never received a single dollar from me. We meant, what did you tell Michael about my financial situation? I interrupted. Mom's face went white. She glanced at Michael, then back at me. I think, Michael said quietly, we need to start over, all of us, with complete honesty this time. Dad tried to regain control. Now listen, both of you, family helps family. That's what we do. You're right, I said. Family does help family, but family also acknowledges that help. Family doesn't lie about it. Family doesn't manipulate it. And family, Michael added, surprising me with his firmness, doesn't play children against each other. The room fell silent. My parents looked at each other, and for the first time in my life, I saw them without their masks. They looked like what they were, two people whose elaborate manipulation had finally been exposed. So here's what's going to happen, I continued. Michael and I are going to coordinate any future help we provide. No more secret arrangements. No more lies about who's contributing what. No more playing us against each other. And, Michael added, no more taking credit for raising successful children when that success was built on systematic exploitation. Mom started crying, but these weren't the manipulative tears I'd seen so many times before. These were the tears of someone whose comfortable lie had finally collapsed. We just wanted to be proud of both of you, she whispered. Then be proud of what we actually accomplished, I said. Be proud that despite being financially manipulated for 15 years, I still built a career. Be proud that Michael succeeded in spite of the lies you told him about me. Be proud that your children are strong enough to survive what you put us through and still love you enough to have this conversation. Dad cleared his throat. So what now? Now, I said, we start over, with truth this time. The family system that had defined my entire adult life was finally cracking apart. The golden child and the scapegoat were finding their way to each other. The parents who had controlled us through manipulation were learning to face us as equals. It wasn't going to be easy. Years of damage don't heal overnight. But for the first time in 15 years, I felt like I could breathe. The money would stay in my account. The manipulation would end. The gaslighting would stop. And maybe, eventually, we could build something better from the ruins of what we'd been.